So I don't know what I keep hearing. It sounds like somebody's coming in the back door, but nobody's coming in the back door. Um, I just wish I could be at home alone without the apprehension of somebody coming through my back door. Um, I mean, not that I'm going to take Allison's key away from her, assuming she still has one, but I don't know. I just can't emphasize enough how much I want Priscilla to be living in her own space and not in mine. Oh, so anyway, what was I? Walmart cleaned up my cleaned up my car. I met a guy who seems interested in having me hook up his TV and other devices to his TV and integrate it to his stereo. I hope he's serious about it, because I talk to people. I talk to so many people about doing that, and I'm really good at doing that. And those who have ever, kind of been in my world have seen that I have a really impressive home theater system, and it looks like I've dumped a huge amount of money on it. And I suppose over time I have, but it's all been one component at a time. And anybody can make a really great home theater system on the cheap if they just put together the things they have and then start, improving on the weak spots. But most people these days just take a TV and plug it in and hook up their internet to it and call it good, or just connect it to Wi-Fi. They might actually bother to, hook up a cable box or a satellite box or maybe a sound bar, but yeah. So many people, it's like, oh, I can't watch my DVDs. I don't have a DVD player. Why don't I? Oh, it broke. Well, DVD players are like a dime a dozen. I probably have over 100 DVD players that I'd be happy to sell to anyone for like $10, because I could really use $10 more than another DVD player. In fact, I have plenty of Blu-ray players I'd happily off for $10, just because I could really use the $10, and another maybe $10, $15 for taking the time to hook it up and configure it for them. But anyway, I digress. So I got a number. Maybe I should try and follow up on him and, try to turn that into some work. Because I did meet another person at a bar last week that also was interested in the same sort of thing, and I haven't heard back from him either. Moving on. So left from there, went to the hospital. I brought her the first Harry Potter book, but I couldn't give her to it because it's a hardback book. They won't allow hardback books, which is sad. I guess the worry is that they could use him as a weapon, but the reality is that they could also ball up their fists and use that as a weapon, and I don't see them removing patients' hands. So, I don't know. The logic of what a person can and can't have in a mental hospital is pretty stupid, and that's why I think it's such a bad thing. It's one thing to have those things removed from you because you're a criminal and you're in jail. It's another thing to have them removed because somebody else feels that you're a danger to self or danger to others, or persistently or acutely disabled. And speaking of persistently acutely disabled, boy, I had quite the talk with Allison's lawyer. And I kind of know what is suggested by acute or persistently disabled, but I never actually heard the state definitions of it. And when he read it to me, and I don't recall, it's basically you've got two long convoluted circular definitions, with a definition that precedes it saying one of either of the following. And so basically what it's as vague. It's the equivalent of family law's best interest of the child. It's something vague that the judges can twist into whatever they want it to be, and that the doctors can turn anything that they feel qualifies that into that, even something that's essentially nothing at all. Any person does something throughout the day that could be twisted into that, the way the definitions were written. And I wish I had it in front of me to read it, but if you're so inclined to look that Arizona law up, please do get back to me. It's pretty appalling. Gonna get to these CDs. That's where I am. So let's see. After that, I went and had a really nice long talk with Karen Shano, who's been my family law attorney and friend for a very long time. Was actually a friend. Well, anyway, maybe someday I'll explain who she is to me, but she's a very special person in my life. And, sometimes we're having proper consultations in her office, and I'm billed like any other client, which is at about $300 an hour. And then sometimes we're just catching up. I don't expect to see a bill for the time I spent in her office yesterday, and we were catching up on all kinds of stuff, but we were also talking about my kids. And anyway, she got me information about Allison's aunt and uncle who challenged me for custody, and they also lost. It's my understanding Allison completely burned her bridges with them, but she thinks they might help her, and I'm pretty skeptical of that. But I had to agree with her when I was leaving the hospital, and she said, well, if nothing else, I have one more phone number to call while I'm here and I'm bored, and for the most part, I'm just here and I'm bored. And I couldn't agree more. I know when I was in the mental hospital, at some point I just called random phone numbers that I saw advertised on the TV just for somebody to talk to and something to do. So I think it's the cats making the noise that I keep thinking of somebody coming in. Anyway, after that, now we're getting to these. After that, I went to my friend Nick's record store. It's called the Vinyl Record Dude, and Nick has been one of my best friends for a long time. I mean, God, I guess we're going on, say 12, 13 years. I met him probably within the first month or two of my working at Gilligan's. And he was a young guy then, barely old enough to drink. He used to come in and he used to crack me up. He's like, I'm gonna fly and bang me a fat chick tonight. He was usually pretty serious. That was his mission. But many times after finishing my karaoke, he'd come to my karaoke show having a good time, and he'd be bar hopping, looking for some big girl loving. He'd come back. Sometimes he'd come back later with one in tow. He'd introduce me to her. That was always fun times. And other times he's still looking. He'd come back later, much more drunk than the first time he came in. Maybe sing another song, maybe not. And always a fun time. And then a lot of times we actually started getting together and hanging out afterwards. And he had an apartment there. And I think when I met him, he was doing tech support for somebody. And at one point he started doing not really much more than what I'm doing right now, which is selling some extra records on eBay. But he put a lot into it and started selling more records, and he had them on some, had a shelf dedicated to it. Like I got 2 small shelves dedicated to it right now in my apartment. Sup, Sheba, crazy kitten. There went Sheba. So I had, so anyway, he had more space dedicated to that. And eventually he, bigger and bigger shelves. Eventually he had to kick his roommate out and turn his roommate's room into storage for vinyl and an office for running his online music resale business. And I remember through the years of hanging out with him, it overflowing that room and taking up like even more of his apartment to the point where he didn't have a lot of living space because his online record store was consuming his apartment. And he had like a 2-bedroom apartment in Old Town. And then eventually he got a warehouse, and now that warehouse is full, and he's got 3 employees. I found out one of them, who's a guy I really like, named Elvis, is battling cancer. So I hope Elvis gets healthy enough to come back and go to work there. But he did have, Nick has 2 other employees working full time. A good friend of mine who passed away several years ago named Dave, he worked there for him for quite some time. Part of me wants to ask Nick for a job, but I know when I'm hanging out there, I'm distracting from Nick's productivity because it's just such a wonderland for me, and I'm so happy to hang out with him. And I do worry that if I asked him for a job, that he'd probably give me one, just because, out of a desire to help and a desire to help me and have me there. And I fear that I would drag his business down because it's just such a wonderland for me that I don't think I could focus on actually doing the work that needs to be done. And And I'd just be like, oh, look at this CD. Ooh, look at this record. Ooh, look at this tape. Oh, wow. Let me plug in and play with this turntable. I think I'd just be so distracted. I mean, shoot, I think that's the biggest problem with me not making the money I could make on my own online sales. I just get so distracted by playing with and cataloging records and tapes and CD players that it's like, wow, I probably should ship my orders. Speaking of which, I got 4 orders I need to ship, so I should probably wrap this video up and do that. So anyway, this was a rather eventful trip to Nick's store. I just wanted to touch base with him, briefly, and let him know what was going on with my karaoke shows. I received $125 from the owner of the 44. Woo-hoo! Not quite the $600 that I'm owed, but I'll take it. I need it. Anyway, so I forget his name. Something Anderson, of course, but the former owner of Anderson's Fifth Estate was there. And it was really bizarre because I walk in, and apparently they had just finished talking about me. And they're like, oh, hey, speak of the devil, this is the guy I was just telling you about. And the reason they were discussing me, and let me back it up a little bit. So Anderson used to own a nightclub called Anderson's Fifth Estate, which was a very popular club in Old Town Scottsdale. It was on Fifth Avenue, which I'm sure that's where the name Fifth Estate came from. On Fifth Avenue between Goldwater and Indian School, in that little windy stretch of road there on the north side of the road, adjacent to the canal. And it's kind of a small club, but just a really happening club. And it had a lot of really great live bands back when Phoenix and mostly Tempe. They got Tempe bands there. But back when Arizona had a really good live music scene. Some of the best would play there. And he'd get some national acts coming through as well. Back when national indie label acts played at local clubs. Doesn't really seem to be a thing anymore. Live music isn't hardly a thing anymore. Don't limit this. I'm not letting this digress into a coronavirus video. Anyway, and then of course as that scene started dwindling, he started doing more and more dance club nights. And so anyway, it's a club that I went to off and on throughout the 90s. I don't think I ever went there in the early 2000s, but it was still functioning in the early 2000s. For me, the early 2000s consisted of me having really tough times as I lost my house, my mother's house, whatever it is, the house that I had. Sweetwater, I wasn't able to maintain it. And anyway, that's another story for another time. So yeah, tough times of losing that. Oh, and let's not forget I went to prison in 1999. So that was so early 2000. There was that, and then there was the losing of the house, followed by me going through extremely tough times. So there was really not much in the way of going to clubs, and I didn't have a vehicle, so certainly not a club as far away as Scottsdale. Considering I lived on the west edge of Mesa, Old Town Scottsdale. And after that, I moved to Tucson, and I was on another adventure of attempting to have a life and a marriage and a family, and everybody knows me and knows that ended up very badly. And then after that, it's just the tough times of the aftermath of my divorce and the homelessness that followed, which kind of turned into me starting a karaoke business and then getting government assisted housing, and I've been on that path for 16 some years. So yeah, that kind of club was something I never ended up going back to Anderson's Fifth Estate. But I remember going in the 90s to see bands that I liked. It seems like I at least went on a DJ night once. Sometimes I was in the mood for that sort of thing, but I was much more into the live music scene back then. Anyway, so it was really cool to meet him. I mean, it's somebody whom I've known of for, I'm going to say 25 plus years. And very familiar with his club, and I guess the reason they were discussing me was these discs. So, according to Nick, which I found out later, is him and Anderson have been trading, music, because he's a music collector and media collector, and has some interesting memorabilia that he's acquired through his years of owning a club. And he'll trade stuff with Nick and buy and sell whatnot. Nick says he's a really good customer, comes in a lot and brings in interesting stuff. And he presented him this bag, and there were some other CDs in this bag. And actually, it wasn't this bag. I got this bag when I got anyway, I digress. It doesn't matter. It's a bag. But the contents of this, some other stuff. And Nick pulled out some stuff that he thought was viable product that he would want to sell. Notable things from former local bands, and then some interesting label samplers and things that he felt was, money item stuff he'd flip. I feel bad. Maybe I should have told Nick that some of these were money items too, but if Nick is happy and I'm happy, everybody's happy. And I think he knows I flip some of the stuff that he practically gives me, but it's not really that's not his niche. It's not what he's about taking the time to look up. And a lot of these just are a little on the dirty side, and he's just not about doing CDs for the most part. So I started looking through, and at first I saw stuff like this. They're just, burned CD compilations, and maybe there's some good music on there, and maybe I'll rip it, but these, of course, have no value. Oh, and hey, look, it's a DVD without a case that's scratched up. Yeah, it's Batman. I might watch it, but it not much of value. And again, another burned CD. Oh, anyway, so he told me that these are a bunch of music video discs for DJ purposes, and I guess that's why him and Anderson were discussing me. It's like, hey, I got this friend, Dan. He does a karaoke show, but then he also intermixes music video, and this is the sort of thing he'd probably just love. I'm disappointed that this here doesn't have the the Walmart exclusive bonus disc that it says it had, because I love old samplers like that. But it's there's a Foo Fighters CD, The Color and the Shape. I've got so many copies of this, and this scratched up one without its case, of course, has no value. But I do believe I'm gonna stick that in my car. I love listening to that album, and I don't have to worry about this one getting scratched up in my car because it's already scratched up. Kid Rock, VD. I imagine Kid Rock would give you VD. All right, moving right. I got VD from Kid Rock. Not me. Anyway, this is the good stuff. It's former subscription discs to Promo Only, which is a DVD subscription that a lot of other karaoke DJs I know have, particularly Chris Christian, who I've talked about before on my vlog. He's pretty much the reason that I'm at the 44 now. Not that I'm holding that against him. I appreciate him opening the door for me. It's just sad that what was behind that door has turned out not to be what I hoped it could be. Anyway, he's had this subscription for years. I've had other KJs and DJs I know that have got it, and they've told me, you should get it. And I've looked into it, and it's a little pricey. And I'm like, nah. And I've always had other sources for music videos. And of course now, the top source for music videos is YouTube. It's kind of a no-brainer. But this was a way that before YouTube was a thing, that music video DJs got music videos. And, it's a DVD. Doesn't have a menu. It just has track numbers. And as you see, it's all the current. It was a subscription of current stuff. And of course, they say right on them, should say for promotional use only, not for sale broadcast. These were never intended for resale, and it was kind of assumed that if you subscribed to this, that you were a DJ and you were going to be promoting it. Although I find it weird that it's not for broadcast. I don't know. I guess the assumption is that they aren't licensing this for broadcast, and that's kind of a separate license. And I don't want this to digress into a video about intellectual property rights, because that's a subject I could go on at length about that bores most people to death. But anyway, you see this is from October of 2004, and here you see the top 40 stuff and some dance related stuff and urban. I always found the term urban for music to be funny. Rock. But yeah, a lot of different music here I like, from Lil Wayne Go DJ to Los Lonely Boys, More Than Love, Prodigy, some ambient video, and I guess it's just some background stuff to play to, break up, background stuff. Curious to see those. But, Alter Bridge, Green Day. And some of these I can maybe get better quality videos from from YouTube, but a lot of these probably not, so will I ever take the time to rip these? I don't have any idea, but So I was flipping through and looking these up, and then every single one, there was, more than enough to justify of, yeah, I want that. And I'm thinking to myself, God, these, secondhand, these are hard to come by, and sometimes they go for a lot of money. I don't know what kind of money he was looking to get out of them. So I'm sorting through it. I'm like, yeah. Oh, yep, want that one. Oh, yep, good songs, want that one. Eventually, he was, done doing whatever he was doing. Nick has some stuff he's working on. And I'm just kind of trying to be out of the way so his workers can work on what they're working on. I'm going through it. He's finally like, well, what do you think for that bag of discs? And mind you, I mean, that there's a whole lot more to this bag of discs. And he's like, I'm like, God, I don't know. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm on the edge of financial ruin, so I don't need to be dropping hundreds of dollars on this. And don't get me wrong, I'm tempted to drop hundreds of dollars on this. And I'm thinking, well, I have access to credit. This is one of the things I will use my credit for, although I don't see there being a lot of return on investment unless I sell them. And these are not something I want to sell. So, mental conundrum there. And finally it's like, well, he goes, these are the ones I pulled aside. And he showed me the ones I pulled aside. Some neat stuff there. He goes, practically gave them to me. I'm assuming that Anderson had them because he got them for his bar. As well, practically gave them to him. I mean, I'm going to more than, make my money back several times over off this pile. So, I don't know. How's $10 sound? I'm like, shit, Nick, all you wanted was $10. Why didn't you just tell me that when you handed me the bag? I could have made it. It would have taken me 10 seconds to decide I was spending $10 on that. You got me trying to sort out which ones I can and can't afford. He just laughed. I gave him $10. But it wasn't until I got home that I saw what else was on here. So we got that, more promo only promo. Oh, and these ones here, the dance mix video. I was not aware of these. I've never really seen a promo only disc other than pictures of them online. Like friends of mine who have them have never shown me their physical CDs. I've seen them at their show as they play them from their computer system, and I've seen their very distinctive text tagging that gives you the artist and title and the record label. And just like most music video channels tag them with a unique font that, you can look at it and like you can look at an MPEG file that was ripped off MTV2 or VH1 and that's where it came from the font, even if it doesn't say VH1 on it, from the style of the font that was used at the time, if you're familiar with that. And the ones on promo only always say at the bottom, promo only. So, but anyway, these dance mix ones are kind of neat. They're broken into little sets. You see, like each set is 3 videos, and each of those videos are beat mixed into each other. So the segues are a smooth transition. So basically, if you're a DJ and you're spinning the music and you're trying to keep a constant beat going, these 3 videos together are 3 videos where you don't have to think about doing that. You can just let the thing go and maybe go to the bathroom if you need to, which can be a thing to do in an extended DJ